Hey guys, welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles! In the last episode, we had our first cross-examination of Mr. Graydon. And we established a link between him and the pawnbrokery, but we haven't yet finished the trial yet. So now we are going to talk about the disc, and let's just get into it. There's a note on the disc saying for McGilded, but the item belongs to me. We're gonna press it, of course. Would you care to explain how this belongs to you? As you will observe, a communications officer such as myself commands a fine salary. You're certainly exquisitely dressed, sir. So you see, I have a little need to make use of the services provided by the pawnbrokery trade. However, I did once find myself in difficulties having misplaced my purse whilst on an errand, which is why I pawned my fine black overcoat to the broker in question. You claim that was your overcoat? Obviously, and in my haste, I clean forgot that the music box disc was in its pocket.
And yet, there is a note on it that reads, "For McGilded."
I am a collector of rare and unusual music box music. I first met Mr. McGilded at a gentleman's club in the city and was interested to discover that he shared my penchant in that area.
So, the disc in question.
It's a pre-production sample. I promised to let Mr. McGilded hear it.
But then you forgot that it was in the pocket of the overcoat you were forced to pawn.
Yes, exactly. Gina didn't mention any of that in her testimony 2 months ago, did she?
No, because Mr. McGilded had threatened her to keep her mouth shut. Which means that if we dig up too deeply here, it's going to expose Gina's perjury.
Oh dear, this is complicated, isn't it?
Let's leave it alone for the time being.
The redemption ticket was stolen from me by the accused, the filthy gutterling, on the day in question. Hold it! So you're saying that Miss Lestrade lifted the ticket from your pocket or bag? That's right, despite being mindful of danger when walking in the insalubrious area here her kind frequent. Objection! Miss Lestrade did no such thing. Well, of course you would take that stance, but the girl is a regular offender. You came to the pawnbrokery that day prepared with all the information you needed to identify the defendant. You were looking for her. That's what brought you to Windybanks. To get your hands on Mr. McGilded's disc.
Objection!
My learned friend is a veritable font of nonsense.
Nonsense? I concur with the prosecution. Counsel, you will refrain from conjecturing in this way. Is that clear? Yes, my lord. Then I will continue with my testimony for what possible use it can be. I proceeded at once to the shop in order to explain my situation and redeem my article. Hold it! Had you ever been to Windybanks before? Only once, for the purpose of pawning something, but like many, I enjoy browsing in such establishments.
So when you noticed that the pickpocket had taken your ticket, you chased after her. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. I didn't notice at first, of course, such is the art of pick-purse. But when I did, I headed the pawnbrokery at once in order to reclaim my coat before the thief could. I was merely trying to recover what was rightfully mine in the first place. Oh, he can say what he likes because he knows we have no evidence to contradict him on this. In the end, of course, the disc was taken by the police. Hold it! Yes, it was taken by Inspector Gregson here, wasn't it? That's right. This was the very man. Apparently the police are collecting anything that has a connection to Mr. McGilded as evidence. Let's see that. Is something wrong, Inspector?
What do you mean?
The last remark Mr. Graydon made in his testimony seemed to trouble you in some way.
No, it didn't. It's nothing. Leave it alone.
Let me ask you this, Inspector. Why is Scotland Yard gathering Mr. McGilder's possessions?
I can't tell you something like that, Sunshine.
What is it, Inspector? Investigative secrets?
Yes, exactly. You should know all about that.
Magnus McGilvert, who died so unexpectedly after his trial 2 months ago. A man renowned throughout the capital for his great contributions to public life. Yet he had a dark side too.
Where are you going with this, Van Zeeks?
I suppose the police are dealing with the aftermath of these nefarious activities, are they?
That's enough. Couples like me have duties to carry out that we're not at liberty to talk about. That's all you need to know.
Duties conferred by Lord Strongheart, I presume. The Lord Chief Justice appears to have great faith in you, Inspector.
The bottom line is, if you want to get more out of me, you're gonna need Lord Strongheart's paw print first.
What's all this about? It's like there's something going on between Gregson and Lord Van Zeeks here. Well, it would appear that the inspector has revealed all he has at liberty to reveal. Mr. Graydon, let us return to your testimony. Gladly, my lord. In other words, I had absolutely no reason to break into the shop later the same... Oh, wait a second, is that this... was taken by the police? Yes, that was being pursued, right? Proceeded at once to shop and explain my situation, redeem my article. Just a second. So that was the same. Was the fourth statement? Yeah, it was the fourth statement. It was this one. So we are going to press here, of course. Let's go.
Hold it!
But perhaps you'd seen something of value among the forfeited items. No, not at all. Oh.
A valuer was brought in by the police to assess everything in the shop. Without exception, every article on the shelves was a common or garden bric-a-brac.
In that case, it's clear that you broke into the shop later that day in order to recover Mr. McGilder's disc. Have you not been listening, man? Even if I had wanted to recover the disc, you may recall that it had been seized by the police that afternoon. It was no more in the shop that night than as I keep saying, I simply had no reason to break in. So there was nothing of McGilder's left in the shop that night. Nothing this man might have been after. I wonder if that's really true. Bruno, if you have some evidence, then let him have it. I'm dying to see that irritating short expression of his crumble. McGilder slipped the disc into his coat pocket and had it deposited at Windybank's. Then, when he realized he was going to be arrested on suspicion of the omnibus murder, he threatened Gina and forced her to take the redemption ticket. There's no doubt about it. The witness is lying through his pearly white teeth. The police were obviously after anything left behind by McGilder as well. That's why Inspector Gregson ended up taking the disc into custody that day. But Gregsy's being very strange about all this. There must be a reason for that, I'm sure. I just don't know what it is. For now, I need to focus on exposing the fact that Mr. Graydon is lying in his testimony. Okay, so... Okay, but he had a reason, and Watson already pointed us towards that. From the pawn by the victim. Is it this one? Or is it this one? It's Mr. Mason's. That's for the code. It must be this one because the box, he needs the box including... The box is for the disc, right? So it must be this.
Objection!
Alright. This disc was deposited at Winniebank's on Magnus McGilder's instructions. You knew that, and you went there with the intention of obtaining it for yourself.
Objection!
Conjecture again, and in any case, the disc was taken into custody by the police that afternoon. The witness had no reason to visit the pawnbrokery again that night.
Objection!
Sorry, my learned friend, but that's not true.
What?
Mr. McGilded had another article in pawn at Winniebank's, as this second pawnbroker's ticket proves.
Oh!
There were 2 articles belonging to Mr. McGilded in Winniebank's pawnbrokery, and the reason you broke into the shop that night was to recover the second one. Together with your 2 accomplices, the Skulking Brothers.
Oh!
This is the second ticket, is it?
What had the man deposited?
The article description reads, 1 small box. A rather vague description, it seems to me. Are you suggesting that I broke into the pawnbrokery with these clowns in order to steal some trinket box? I believe there are adequate grounds to suspect that you did. This is absurd! Why on earth would I do such a thing? Once the article had been forfeited, I could simply walk into the shop and purchase it. There would be absolutely no need for me to resort to theft. That's a good point. Indeed, the witness makes a solid argument. So that means that for some reason, this Graydon fellow needed the small box that very night, does he?
Objection!
It's time to put an end to this nonsense, my lord.
Could you be a little less cryptic, Lord Van Zeeks?
I do hate to read my learned friend's argument, but the truth is quite incontrovertible. On the night in question, no small box was taken from Winniebank's pawnbrokery. And rest assured, the prosecution can prove it.
What? Good gracious!
Inspector, show the photographic prints to the court if you please.
Yes, sir.
What prints?
These prints were taken from one of the detective's security cameras.
Oh, Hurley's red-handed recorders again!
As previously explained using this plan of the shop layout, the victim's establishment was furnished with automatic cameras in 2 locations. One was set to capture the counter where Mr. Winniebank received his customers, and the other was set to capture the shelves on which articles were placed for sale once forfeited.
According to the information on this ticket,
Just a second. Sorry.
McGillet's small box had been forfeited already. 2 days before the incident at 9 p.m. on 13th April to be precise, which means it would have been on the shelves of forfeited items in the shop front. Now, what I have here is a print taken by one of the cameras about 2 hours before the incident. That's at 11 p.m. on 15th April.
The victim certainly had a very full shop, it would appear.
And then here we have another print. This one was taken about 2 hours after the incident.
I see. So we have two pictures to compare. Though I must say that placing them side by side leaves me cold. Dear me, that's starting to make my head ache.
Obviously, at Scotland Yard, we considered theft as one possible motive in this case. We explored the possibility that something had been taken in addition to the victim's life.
So your men have already compared these two prints thoroughly, Inspector?
Yes, sir. We counted every single item in each of these two photographic prints. And the Yard's conclusion is that exactly the same number are present in both.
In other words, nothing was taken from the pawnbrokery on the night in question. And my learned friend's assertion is nothing more than a hopeful fantasy.
Ah! I don't believe it. If I could have just shown that he'd stolen McGillet's pawned box, I might have been able to break him down at last. You know what, Bruno? I've been thinking. I wonder if these two photographs really are exactly the same. So this seems like the music box, right? Can we see any difference already? I wonder. This must be the music box for sure. Although this... Oh, we do have a difference here. There is a difference, guys. You see my mouse here? So this is the music box apparently, or this one. And on this photograph, you can see that it has slidden right, a little bit to the right here. What? So, counsel, in the light of the evidence put forward by the prosecution, what is your position? It seems that in fact, on the night in question, nothing was stolen from the victim's establishment. Do you accept the prosecution's assertion? I don't know. Yes, I do. Could there be some hidden discrepancy in these two photographic prints somewhere? Point out a discrepancy. There is a discrepancy. We don't need the piece of evidence. Although, we do have, wait a second, we do have a stereoscope, right? So let's use that. Use a piece of evidence. Before I give my answer, my lord, I'd like to try something if I may. Try something? What do you mean, counsel? I'll need to use a certain piece of evidence from the court record to identify the discrepancy. I'm not entirely sure I follow. Which piece of evidence do you intend to use to help you identify a discrepancy between the two prints? Well, the stereoscope.
Take that!
I'd like to use this device, my lord, to view the two prints stereoscopically.
Oh! Yes, you've caught the back at least. At last, you can't resist it, can't you? You've got the cross-eyed compulsion.
Juror number 3, what a surprise.
Come on, Bruno. Let's put the pictures in place and see what this wonderful contraption shows us. There we go. Now look through the eyepiece.
I wasn't sure at first, but there is a clear discrepancy between these two prints. What? You must identify the location in question for the court counsel. Indicate the precise location of the discrepancy of which you speak. Sure thing. There we go.
Take that!
Granted, these two prints are almost identical. However, there is one minor discrepancy between them.
What?
When you view the two pictures stereoscopically, a single area stands out as being different, the location of this small box.
Let me wait. Unbelievable!
By Jove, you're right! How extraordinary! What this tells us is very simple. Mr. McGilder's small box was indeed not stolen from Windybanks on the night in question. However, there can be no doubt that somebody picked up this particular box and then returned it to its place on the shelves. I was suggesting that the small box originally deposited by Mr. McGilder is in fact... Yes, the very same small box I just identified in those photographic prints.
Objection!
Mindless guesswork. What if it was? So a box was moved on the shelf. Nothing was stolen. Which means quite simply that nothing has changed.
That may be true, but... Alright, McGilder's box wasn't stolen then. But doesn't the fact that it was moved like that change things? It changes everything. Because it changes nothing, which just supports his argument. I believe this changes everything about the case.
How can that possibly be?
The crucial point is that the fact that what was moved was a small box. In other words, we have to consider what might have been inside that box.
What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that we need to examine that box as soon as possible. A vital piece of evidence is sitting on the shelves at Windybanks as we speak.
Objection!
That won't be necessary. Some little box belonging to a man who died 2 months ago can't possibly be relevant to this trial.
The court does not uphold your objection, Lord Van Zieks. Bailiff, arrange for an officer to go to Baker Street at once. Obtain the small box in question and bring it back here for further examination. Oh, what's in the box, guys? What's in the box? We should have a report within half an hour. I think perhaps we should recess for a short while until the evidence is brought forth.
To be hoodwinked by such a farce. Disappointing.
I beg your pardon, Lord Van Zieks.
This is nothing but a smokescreen. A Nipponese specialty, it would seem.
What are you trying to say?
My learned friend has persisted with the same line of reasoning from the very beginning. That this witness's intent was to steal an article belonging to Mr. McGillard from the pawnbrokery. Yet common sense tells us that none of the articles have value enough to be worth stealing in the first place.
Exactly! It would be beyond absurd to break into a place for the purpose of stealing such commonplace property.
If your lordship recalls, Mr. McGilder perished 2 months ago, immediately after the conclusion of his trial. A trial in which he was found not guilty. A trial in which it was established he was the upstanding member of society, his reputation implied in fact. So I propose a toast to my learned friend and his most insightful defense.
The articles this upstanding member of society pawned were entirely ordinary. A black overcoat that just happened to have a music box disc in one of its pockets, and a smoke box. I assure you, I wouldn't accept even if the man tried to make a gift of such things to me. You know, that does make rather a lot of sense. It's not as if there was gold jewelry, is it? Oh goodness, no. Mr. McGillet was rich enough.
But you can't deposit the cash at pawnbrokery.
The prosecution's argument is undeniably compelling.
It is incumbent on the defense now to bolster its argument.
To explain what possible significance these commonplace articles pawned by this fine citizen could have. Well, counsel, is your argument in fact demonstrable? Are you able to show proof that the disc or the box are in any tangible way related to this case?
Well,
What's the matter, Runo? We know that they're related, don't we? They're both vital pieces of evidence.
yes, of course, you and I both know that. We know McGillet's true character and we know the disc is significant, even if we don't know why. But if we explain all that to the court at this point, we'll have to acknowledge that McGillet's acquittal 2 months ago was a mistake. That the defense's argument was flawed, based on false information.
Oh no!
And that would mean admitting that Gina committed perjury.
But Ginny!
Could it be that Van Zieks knows? Is that why he's doing this now? Because he anticipated everything?
But maybe this could be a great opportunity for us.
Sorry, what do you mean, Iris?
Well, what is it that you always say, Runo? Sooner or later, the truth comes out. Every time.
Alright, the exact significance of the things that McGillet deposited with Mr. Mindybank is something that only Gina can explain to the court. But if I put her on stand to testify about that, it could critically damage our chances of winning this case. What's the right thing to do here? Well, the truth comes out at the end because leaving it, that's not a real option. Let's have Gina testify. My lord, the defense would like to make a proposal.
Oh, what proposal, counsel?
While the court awaits the arrival of Mr. McGillet's small box, I would like to call the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade, to the witness stand.
The defendant? To what end?
It's to do with the various articles deposited at Windybanks by Mr. McGillet, my lord. Miss Lestrade has information relating to them. I believe it would be beneficial for the court to hear what she has to say. It will prove the significance of the articles in question once and for all.
Well, well. Things are becoming interesting. I presume you've considered the implications of the testimony you're proposing. In particular, the impact it will have on the accused's standing, and indeed your own.
I have.
Lord Van Zieks, would you care to explain the last remark?
The prosecution accepts the defense's proposal. I move to interrupt the cross-examination of the current witness and hear from the accused herself.
Very well, if you have no objection. So, the court will now hear the testimony of the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade. Your witnesses currently in the stand may step down until further notice. Then I shall bid you good day.
Wait. You, sir, shall remain in the stand while Miss Lestrade testifies.
As you wish.
All right then, Gina, it's time. I know this will be hard, but please put your faith in me here.
Good luck, Runo.
The articles that Mr. McGillet had deposited in Windybank's pawnbrokery are intimately related with the omnibus case, the trial of which was heard in this courtroom 2 months ago.
Yes, and I remember this young lady being brought before me in that trial as well. That's right, my lord. Her testimony helped to establish the innocence of the defendant, Mr. McGilden.
The omnibus case was intriguing, to say the least. And now, here we all are again, the same players in that trial facing each other once more. A twist of fate, perhaps, my Nipponese friend.
Allow me to recap the events of 2 months ago. An old brickmaker was stabbed to death in an omnibus running along London's winter streets. Apart from the victim, there was only one other person in the carriage, Mr. McGilden. Naturally, he was the prime suspect for the murder. But as the trial progressed, another possibility emerged, that the murder in fact took place above the defendant's head on the roof deck, with the body then being dropped through the skylight into the carriage below. It was Miss Lestrade whose testimony brought that possibility to light. At the time of the incident, Miss Lestrade was concealed under a seat in the carriage, hoping to pick the pockets of unsuspecting passengers. Then, immediately after the trial, having been acquitted of the murder, Mr. McGilden died in this very courtroom in the most extraordinary of circumstances.
A mystery that remains unsolved even now, 2 months on. As indeed does the omnibus murder itself.
Be that as it may, I recall neither the disc nor the small box being mentioned in the course of those proceedings. Miss Lestrade, would you tell the court now, please, what really happened in the omnibus 2 months ago, I mean?
I don't know what you mean. I already said all of what I know.
And what about everything you told us yesterday from inside your prison cell? Please, Miss Lestrade, this is extremely important.
But
Remember, little girl, if it transpires that you willfully withheld information in the trial 2 months ago, the Home Office will seek to prosecute you for perjury. And naturally, you will lose all credibility as a witness. Although, let's face facts, you have little credibility to lose.
Ginny, don't listen to him. Please, you have to trust Bruno now. Iris, we're on your side.
all right then. I'll talk.
It's the right choice, Gina.
Well, it would seem that my learned friend is hell-bent on bringing the entire courtroom down about his ears. So be it.
I must confess that I'm struggling to understand what on earth is happening here. However, it would appear that Mr. McGilden's pawned articles and that extraordinary case of the omnibus harbor secrets of which we have been hitherto unaware. So, Miss Lestrade, you will now give your testimony before the court about the events of 2 months ago. You will reveal the truth, a commodity sorely lacking in your original statements. This is it then, everything's going to come out. Like Van Ziek said, this could bring the whole courtroom down about my ears, but as a lawyer, I'm prepared to take that risk.
Witness testimony. The real truth of the omnibus case. But guys, we have breached the half-hour mark already, so we are going to call it quits for this episode of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. If you want to know what the real truth is all about, you'll have to tune in for next time for the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles.
See you then.